Hey guys, it's DieselDuckFan2001 here, and well, today I'm going to be reacting to a video that came out a few days ago by now, and today's the 25th, so 24th in the United States, and I live in Australia, but it's called The In Defense of Adventures by Turtles&Thomas. By the title, oh god, adventures, I just can't stand adventures. I mean, it's better than what came before it, but ooh, this is going to be an interesting video. Anyways, let's begin. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's begin.
Lately I've been feeling nostalgic for merchandise that was made in 2003.
Pretty much, yeah,
so that's
I agree.
How bad things have gotten.
Everyone in the community, I'm pretty sure, does.
It seems like every brand of merchandise has been deteriorating lately. In recent years, there have been so many brand relaunches, and every time the quality goes down just a little bit.
The really sad part is, I actually have to agree with you. I really don't like Mattel running one railway. I think it should go back to learning curve. I mean, honestly, Mattel is worse than Tommy in my opinion, and Fisher-Price has not been doing a good job, especially with Trackmaster, Motorized Rail, what have they done? And oh god. Take and Play have gone down the hill, and I really don't like it. The last decent Thomas range was probably, Take and Play up until about 2015 when they changed the magnets. I mean, 2014 was the last decent year for Take and Play, and all these brands have gone downhill. Man, 2007 was actually a really good year. I don't believe it.
I've found myself really missing the simpler time that was 2003, back when they were actually putting effort into the toys. Now the crazy thing about what I just said was in 2003 people were saying the exact same thing about 1993.
Okay, I might have to disagree with you there. I don't necessarily think that people really panned 2003 as much as they pan now, which today's time definitely deserves to be panned. I mean, Mattel in the modern railway is awful, but back to the point. I do kind of see where you're going with this, but I do think that there was some sort of respect for the items in 2003. I mean, sure, I was still alive, but I was a young kid in 2003, so I don't really know much, but I mean, I don't see 2003 as heavily panned as 2016, but I can see where you're going with this. But I just don't think I can agree here.
So how bad has it gotten now?
Really bad.
That we're looking back on 2003 as a better time, because in 2003, the merchandise was considered to be horrible. Wooden Railway got a complete redesign, Take and Play replaced Ertl. It was really a terrible time to be alive.
I wouldn't say it would have been an awful time to live. I mean, I was really young in 2003, and I did watch a few classic episodes, mostly from season 6 and 7, since they were the newest seasons, but, I mean, I did grow up on the very end of the old TWR era. Basically, the last year the classic items were available from 2001, that was the last year they had it. I grew up on that very end era, but I do remember 2003's items, and I remember they were actually really good. They weren't bad items, and I don't think a lot of fans really consider them bad items. I mean, maybe back then, since I wasn't really around, so I can't really say, but people would have panned them more, but I reckon the line got a really good revamp, to be honest. I mean, it wasn't as bad as most people anticipate it to be. Sure, it's not as good as 1992 to 2001, but 2003 I still felt like it was a good year, and it was a good way to reintroduce kids to Thomas and Friends, a franchise that is really good for young children. And honestly, I just don't consider it a bad era for most fans, to be honest.
2003 was the middle of the time when Hit Entertainment acquired the franchise of Thomas and Friends from Ghislaine, or Brit, or whatever it was. And as a result, all of the merchandise kind of shifted over. So Wooden Railway got this big redesign where all of the engines suddenly had larger faces that were disproportionately sized to the engine basis. Ertl lost the contract and was replaced with a brand called Take Along, which people at the time hated.
Yeah, I guess in a way, if you kind of look back, you can kind of see some similarities to now and 10 years ago. But honestly, I do feel like 2003 is a much better era than, well, what we've got now. And honestly, I really don't like the current era. People think that Mattel's actually doing a good job. No, Mattel isn't doing a good job. I mean, we've got items like the bubble loader, but I don't even think the bubble loader is the worst item. Seriously, I don't think it's the worst item, and that's how bad Mattel is. I don't even think, have people even seen the 70th anniversary set? That is probably the worst set I've ever seen. A really, really poor representation to keep up with the awesome 60th anniversary set we got in that 2000s era. And honestly, that's why I consider the 2000s era better. We got better sets back then, better merchandise. And sure, there were a few low-flying pigeons back then, but we had high-flying swans back then. We had some really good sets back then. And sadly, we just don't get that now. Everything is overpriced, overused of plastic, and over-detailed. Wooden Railway is about simplicity, not over-detailed items.
But look at now. Wooden Railway again is in a decline. It got way better when Mattel acquired it. The faces suddenly looked really good. They cleaned up all the models. They've actually been pretty amazing compared to what we were getting for a while. But it seems like now, in 2017, they're getting worse again. The faces are changing for some reason. Take and Play has now been discontinued and replaced with a new brand called Adventures.
Honestly, it was a good decision to let Take and Play die, but Adventures just doesn't do it for me. I mean, there's still a lot of the problems. It's overuse of plastic. It doesn't use as much metal as the original Take-Alongs did back in the 2000s. And I just don't understand it. How can it not do that? And also, although I'm glad Take and Play's dying out, I mean, this year seems to be the last year you can get Take and Plays in stores, but, I mean, is Adventures really going to be that much better? I mean, sure, they changed those awful, oversized wooden railway magnets they had on them. Ugh. But is it really any different? I mean, Take and Play was from 2009 to 2016. The last 2 years, 2015 and 2016, were awful. 2014 was what I consider the last decent year of any merchandise. And since 2015, I think I've considered every merchandise from then horrible. Wooden Railway's been bad since 2012, and Trackmaster's died since 2015, so honestly, it's been in a really big decline. It's going to be a lot to get us back up.
What's going on? Everything is getting worse again. Or is it? I've noticed an interesting phenomenon. In the early 90s, when Thomas merchandise was really starting to take off, we were getting fantastic episodes of the show with fantastic merchandise.
Couldn't agree with you more, Turtles. Couldn't agree with you more. Wish those days were still there.
In the early 2000s, we were getting terrible episodes of the show with pretty good merchandise.
I'll have to disagree with you here. I wouldn't really call seasons 6 and 7 really that bad. I mean, they weren't as great as seasons 1 through 4, but seasons 6 and 7 were really good. I mean, I don't really get the overratedness of season 5. I mean, season 5 had a lot of good episodes, but the characters in season 5 were awful. I mean, sure, we got a few okay characters, but some of them were downright terrible. And that's something I have to praise season 6 for. It actually had some decent characters. But about merchandise was actually really good in the 2000s, and I don't really get it. The early 2000s had some decent episodes, Turtles. I wouldn't really call seasons 6 and 7 terrible. I mean, I don't really think many fans consider those seasons terrible. I mean, sure, seasons 8 through 12 were terrible, and they came out in the 2000s, but really, 6 and 7? I don't think they're that bad. I mean, they came out in the early 2000s and they were good seasons. And Thomas and Friends was still really good in 2002, 2003. I don't understand the problem. But your opinion, I guess, even though it's a weird one.
For a little while, we were getting great episodes of the show with fantastic merchandise.
No, we didn't. I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you here. I really just have to, but I don't consider Mattel a good era. I reckon Tomy was doing better than Mattel. I've said a few of these things before, but the sets and the merchandise and everything about Mattel, it's just awful. there's so much overuse of plastic and so many unrealistic destinations. Like, everything's just a reimagined figure eight or a reimagined barrel loader. Like, the bubble loader is just a reimagined barrel loader, and there's so many worse destinations than the bubble loader, and there's so many awful sets, and the story packs are just overpriced, and there's not even enough wood to satisfy me. And I just don't understand why people praise Mattel so much. They don't even, like, I just don't consider it a really good era. And honestly, I just don't see the Mattel era as the new golden age, as everyone's saying it. Mattel isn't doing good. I just have to say that. But your opinion, I guess. I can see why people like the Mattel era, but personally, it's just not for me. I would stick with Learning Curve any day over Mattel.
And now, we are getting amazing episodes of the show with terrible merchandise.
I consider it the same as the Mattel era. Just not enough for me, really. I'd pass on this item.
It seems like we're never going to have both at the same time. It seems like never again will we get great episodes and great merchandise to go with them. Now, when a brand changes hands, you have to expect that certain things are going to change. Even though Wooden Railway has always been made by the same people up until 2013, there was a major change in 2003 because Hit Entertainment acquired the franchise overall. They made a lot of overhauls. They made it clear they wanted to show that they were a different company and that Thomas was going in a new direction. And I don't think that the 2003 trains are particularly bad. In fact, I'm kind of biased towards them. These are the ones that I grew up playing with. And I will admit that they're not nearly as good as what came before them, or what came after them.
I have to disagree with you there. Although I do like the 2003 variants over the Mattel variants, they are better than the Mattel variants are better than the Tomy variants. Although I think Tomy did a better job with the brand, the Tomy faces were, awful. But honestly, the 2003 variants trump both Tomy and Mattel, in my opinion, of course.
But I wouldn't call them terrible. They're not as good, but I love Wooden Railway. I honestly don't think that there's ever been a terrible time for Wooden Railway. Except for maybe that brief time in 2011 when they tried to make the faces look like the CG, and that did not go well.
I don't know, Turtles. I really don't know. I mean, I really don't like the direction Mattel's going with the Wooden Railway. It just seems like everything's just either a reuse of something in the past or just something ridiculously stupid. I don't really like the modern direction Mattel's going with Wooden Railway. And that goes with all brands. I don't like the direction Trackmaster's going, not the direction Take and Play was going. I just don't like Wooden Railway in general, and I feel like Tomy was doing a better job than Mattel, to be honest. I mean, the sets in the Tomy era were better than any set Mattel's released, to be honest. But, like I said, Turtle's opinion, he's entitled to it. And that goes for everyone here. It's your opinion. You can have whatever opinion you want.
Even though I concede that in the past the merchandise used to be a lot better, I still don't feel that it's horrible now. Even the 2017 Thomas, despite its faults, isn't that bad. I mean, the face is kind of weird, but that's really it. There's not really anything else that's changed.
Like I said before, I have to disagree with you. I really think Wooden Railway is getting worse, and, well, any merchandise for that matter. And I feel like Mattel is going downhill with the Wooden Railway. I just think the Wooden Railway is going downhill. It's not a good era for me.
And if you want to talk about faces, this face still looks way, way better than the 2003 face, because this does not look anything like Thomas. In fact, I'm not even really fond of the 1995 on Thomas face. I think the very original one nailed it perfectly, and they've never recaptured that. Now I know you're wondering, what does the title of this video have to do with what I'm talking about? Well, I'm talking about Wooden Railway because I know Wooden Railway. I mean, I might be a little biased. I do own a couple.
That's more than a couple, Turtles, I have to say. Are we ever going to get a collection video?
But anyway, let's talk about Take-Along. I actually own a few of the Take-Along that came out way back in 2003 when they were first getting started. My parents bought them for me at the same time as I was getting into Wooden Railway, perhaps to make me be interested in a brand that cost less to buy, But, well, we see how that worked out. Anyway, I have here the original Take-Along Thomas. It's very different from what came out later, as it has a metal firebox and just generally a lot more quality put into it. It's also shaped differently and colored differently than later models. Now, when these first came out, people absolutely hated them because they took away our beloved Ertl. Now, I love the Ertl more than I love anything on the planet, but even I will concede that there were some issues with the Ertl. The biggest problem, as far as I'm concerned, was the coupling system. It's really, really bad. It's this clippy, hooky thing that's on both ends of the engine, and if you got lucky, sometimes you could find an item that had the pin that goes with it. Most items had no pin at all, so it was impossible to connect most engines together.
Okay, some people are going to say I'm biased here, because, as I've mentioned before, you know my love of the classic Wooden Railway merchandise and my distaste for the new merchandise, but I will admit, there were some faults to the learning curve era, and the older merchandise. I mean, Ertl was one of those. Now, Ertl was probably the best merchandise, but the couplings were bad and it had horrible scaling. Have you seen the Ertl Toad and the Ertl Boko? They are majorly out of scale. Just look at my Ertl unboxing, will you?
The worst thing about this pin system was that it was incredibly fragile. Most of my items are second-hand, and a lot of them that are supposed to have a pin don't because it's been broken off.
The struggle is real, Turtles. The struggle is real. Oh, God.
The reason they would get broken off so easily was children might not understand that you have to very carefully, delicately drop it into the place. It's much more common for children to just mash them together and try to make it connect like that, and that is how you snap off the pin. So, get rid of the Ertl.
He threw away an Ertl? Boo! You disgraced the TWR community! You disgraced the TTTE community! You threw away an Ertl in favour of some new item? Boo! Everyone! Turtles is a total noob! Dislike on something!
Enter the Take-Along. The very best thing about Take-Along, in my opinion, was that the coupling system was a vast improvement from Ertl and from Railway.
Take-Along
Take-Alongs featured smart magnets. Magnets that could connect from both ends, meaning that they could connect like this, or like this, or like this, or anything. With Wooden Railway, they could only ever connect one way, and that was very limiting.
Turtles, I actually have to agree with you there. That was actually a really initiative idea. That really worked. And it helped sell Take-Along better. And honestly, I knew a few kids who had Take-Along over Wooden Railway, and it was a really good idea to help sell Take-Along alongside Wooden Railway. Props to Take-Along for that.
With smart magnets, it was much easier to connect engines together. The years went on and the models changed, until 2013 when Mattel purchased all rights to Thomas & Friends merchandise. Then things got lazy. By 2014, the average take-and-play looked like this, which isn't terrible. It's not that different from the old designs, but you can see there's a lot more plastic and a lot less care put into it. At least they still had the smart magnets, because the very next year, the smart magnets were gone, and the dumb magnets arrived. In what was certainly an effort to save money, the magnets were changed in favor of Wooden Railway-style dumb magnets that only worked one way, limiting the coupling system and taking the brand back enormously.
Yeah, that was dumb. If not the dumbest decision Mattel's ever made. I mean, really? Whose idea was this? I mean, since Adventures is out now, well, we're going to make more money by making a new system so many people will buy this new style of magnet. And that's the only reason I can think of why they made this magnet. They wanted money, so they deliberately made this new magnet for the last 2 years, which is 2015, 2016. So the parents would think, oh no, I'm going to have to buy a new system since they're discontinuing the 2009 to 2014 magnets. So now I'm going to have to buy these new round magnets to keep my son or daughter happy. That's their plan. That's all I can think of as the reason why they replaced it. Because they wanted more money, so they knew for the last 2 years they're going to design it so they make more money, and then they just wanted to do it until Adventures came out. Like, that's the only reason I can think of is why to make those magnets, and it's a dumb decision. They're selfish. That's all I can think of, really. That was whose decision was this? My God.
The magnets are gigantic, grotesque, and distracting. The chassis now look unnaturally huge. These magnets look terrible, and even though they can still interact with the older Take and Play, it's nothing compared to the original Take-Along. Mattel continued to get cheaper and cheaper every year until 2017, when it was decided that even these terrible magnets were too expensive to use.
So they pretty much lost money on the decision into gaining money. Good job, Mattel. Great job. Oh, yeah, good job. Freaking good job. Your plan was to make these new magnets so you'd fool parents into buying, thinking this was an all-new range, so you have to buy more of these, and thinking they're not compatible, but you failed. Plan failed, Mattel. You lost.
And just like that, Take and Play was killed.
Oh, thank God, yes! It's gone! Please let Adventures be decent.
Enter Adventures. Well, what's the big deal? It just looks exactly like a Take and Play, doesn't it? Oh my goodness, the magnets are gone. That's right. In 2017, the magnets are now completely gone in favor of a new coupling system altogether. People have been decrying this as the greatest act of laziness ever in Mattel's history. They've been saying that this is the death of everything they've known to love about the Take and Play brand. Now I say that Take and Play had sucked for a while anyway and should have been killed even sooner. Because Adventures is not that bad. In fact, I quite like it.
Well, I have to agree with you there, Turtles. I really think Take and Play wasn't doing a good job, and it's kind of good that it was getting replaced. But the least Adventures could do is maybe bring back character cards. That's all I can really suggest for it. Maybe make the box packaging, maybe a bit more vibrant. Maybe had a few more images. Maybe a pamphlet might do. Like, that's about the engines. They actually look alright. I just can't get over the magnet. Oh, I can. I guess I can get over the magnets. I can get used to it. But I think, you know, maybe things might be getting good again. At least you know, the die-cast era. I don't know about Wooden Railway, Trackmaster. They're pretty much history at this point, for me at least. I'm not getting any more. But I do have hope for Adventures. I'm not a fan of their destinations, especially the space ones. That is way over the top, way too ridiculous. But I just hope we get some decent destinations for Adventures. That's just all I'm hoping for. The engines look decent, so I'm hoping for good destinations. But I agree with you here, Turtles. I really do. Adventures looks promising, at least of right now.
It's really not different from Take and Play at all. In fact, the only difference is that the very worst thing about Take and Play is no longer there. These new couplings look so much better than the gigantic magnets. They actually look like something you'd see on an engine in real life. They resemble knuckle couplers more than chain couplings, which that's not a British thing, but you know, at least we have something. It's better than the gigantic, terrible magnets that don't look like anything you'd see in real life. And the best thing is that if you miss the two-way couplings, well, here they are. These are exactly the same on both ends, and they're designed to fit into each other, meaning that they connect from either end just as well, just like the smart magnets. People say that they look cheaper, but I say that the dumb magnets looked 100 times worse. And the thing that I like the most about it? It actually reminds me of Ertl.
Props on Mattel for that. That was a good decision. But the only problem I have with Adventures, about the engines at least, maybe make them look a bit different from the Take and Plays, and make them look like, why don't you get the original mold from the original Take-Alongs or the early Take and Plays? I mean, that'd make the model look a lot better. But that's all I can really suggest. Adventures is looking promising so far, at least right now.
I know I said the Ertl couplings aren't very good, but come on, anything I compare to Ertl has to at least be a compliment. They don't quite fit together unless you kind of force it, which damages the Ertl a little bit in the process, but it can be done. So, is Take and Play dead? Yes, thankfully.
Good riddance. Thank God for that. But anyways, as for Adventures, it looks promising. It may not be as good as Ertl and Take Along, but I can see this line lasting for a long time, at least for 7 years. I can still see it being there in 2023, 2024. But things I can suggest for it, maybe use the Take 'em Along's mold, character cards, better packaging, pamphlets, you know, stuff like that. Better destinations. That's what I can suggest for it. But
long live adventures.
yes, long live adventures. So yeah, that was a reaction to Turtles and Thomas's In Defense of Adventures video. Came out a few days ago, but overall, I think it's a really good video. Turtles and Thomas really addressed some really good issues here. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the reaction, I guess. If you haven't already, sub to Turtles and Thomas's channel. I'm pretty sure if you sub to me, you probably sub to him, but I'm going to leave a link to the video in the description. Make sure you sub to it, and, you know, just give it a like. He really did a good job with this. But anyways, this is DieselDuckFan2001, making a good reaction video and signing out.